Welcome to a brand new Corn Nation Overreaction live on YouTube, Facebook, and yes, guys, X. This is the new tripod on Sunday nights, 9 o'clock Central. The other time zones don't matter, let's face it. Central time zone is God's favorite time zone. Greg Mahochko, Haas Reuter, and down there's Every Game Jake. Gentlemen, what's a good word tonight?
1-0.
Yep.
Yeah.
Still undefeated.
The Battle Sports Kansas City Classic. And, not too many people know this. I was there. My first time. It would take Nebraska Cornhuskers to get me to Arrowhead Stadium. But among 72-ish thousand of my best friends clad in red, Nebraska kicked off the season realistically against the Cincinnati Bearcats. Watching the replay this weekend, I don't know how many times I said this was a Cincinnati home game, and then it was moved to Indianapolis, and then Kansas City, and it was looking like nothing, sounding like a Cincinnati Bearcats home game on the way to Nebraska, opening up the season with a 20-17 win, neutral site, but feeling very much at home were the Nebraska Cornhuskers guys.
Yeah, Memorial Stadium southeast, right there in Arrowhead.
Yeah.
I was surprised to learn. I was just surprised to learn that Memorial Stadium had a greater capacity than Arrowhead. I wouldn't have guessed that. Just looking at them out, I've only seen pictures. I've been in Memorial once. I've only seen pictures of it other than that. But I don't know, just Arrowhead felt, bigger.
Well, they've got bigger grandstands along the sidelines, but you notice how it dips down in the end zones a little bit.
Sure. And
Memorial Stadium, most of the seating is in the end zones. I think that's my one critique with Memorial Stadium. It does not have a lot of great sight lines.
Well, and, the other part that kind of surprised me is, if you look on, and I guess it's the hard camera side or, the press box and all the luxury suites on at Memorial Stadium, that takes up a chunk of real estate, sure. Which is, I'm guessing, is that west side of the stadium, right?
West Stadium.
West Stadium. So, but hey, it wasn't always pretty at the end, throughout the game. We're going to break it down and talk about it tonight. But the important thing is that Nebraska started 1-0. They got a one-score win. I don't know how much longer we're going to talk about that particular statistic. There were some issues. There were some troubles. There were some things that popped up along the way during the game. But, the stars, shined brightest when they needed to. Malcom Hartzog, the redemption tour was very brief. But let's dive into it, guys.
Yeah, it's hard to believe that this is only our fifth season opening win in the past 11 seasons.
That is hard.
For a team that had, as a program, we had almost a 30-year streak of season opening wins, until we lost to BYU to start the 2015 season. So it feels different, especially when you're opening up the season against a Power 4 opponent. Last year might have been, I think last year was the first time in 5 seasons that we opened up with a non-power opponent. In 2020, in the COVID year, you had Ohio State that we opened with. 21 was Illinois. 22 was Northwestern and Ireland. 23 was Minnesota. Right. And then getting back to playing a power opponent in a season opener, I think it's the way to do it. Yeah, you run the risk of starting 0-1, but I'd rather know where we're at against a quality opponent after week 1 rather than being a fake tough guy, being Fugazi until week 4 or 5, and then you get smacked in the mouth by reality. So a lot to dive into today. I'm looking forward to it.
Real quick shout out to Pitt Snipe Husker. It says, good evening, Husker fans. Pitt now a member of the Corn Nation channel here on YouTube for a solid calendar year. Pitt, we appreciate your support, sir. I guess first question, did you guys watch the game together?
We did not.
Nope. Did not. All right. So were we texting, calling at halftime? Like, were we sharing real-time thoughts, or was that
we both crashed out pretty good in the late third quarter, texting back and forth about, the perceived struggles in the moment.
Yeah. One of the things I know, I guess I didn't realize it at the time. being that it was not Memorial Stadium and it was not even technically a Nebraska home game, there wasn't a ton of information at Arrowhead Stadium just about like stats or anything like that. I mean, it was pretty repetitive on the video screens, pretty vanilla, a lot of advertising, of course, for the Battle brand, and a lot of repetition of Kansas City Classic, Nebraska Cornhuskers, Cincinnati Bearcats, things like that. So we didn't really have any stats until, after the game. It didn't feel like Nebraska won the time of possession to the extent that they did, but they had double the TOP as the Bearcats. I mean, I guess we want to start there. A lot of drives, a lot of sustained drives, not as many successful drives, like as far as points in the end zone.
Yeah, I think we only had 9 possessions for the game, even though we drove the length of the field on more than one occasion, had an easy score after the Shavers forced fumble. But a lot of that was by Cincinnati's design, what they wanted to do defensively to limit the big play with 3 deep safeties, having 8 underneath, covering intermediate passing zones, and then devoting defenders to the run. And so they really wanted to just basically turn the game into a war of attrition and try to put us on the field, force us to be on the field as long as possible and increase the chances that we make a mistake. Mm-hmm. So they weren't going to get ultra aggressive in their game plan, which is how it kind of played out with both teams having such limited possessions. But they played really good fundamental football and forced us to be basically uncharacteristic of what we've been over the past 10, 11 years. A turnover-prone, mistake-prone football team. But we didn't commit any turnovers. We only had 3 penalties for 27 assessed penalty yards. So we really won a meat grinder of a game.
And I think one of the things that's really astounding, Jake, weigh in on this, is in previous years, some of those instances where we had some near turnovers, right? They would have gone the other way, whether it was the rush end, coming up from behind Dylan and knocking the ball free, or that near interception, which I think in previous years would have been pick six, house the other way. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying that the tides of fate are changing, but it just seemed nice that the ball bounced our way a little bit.
Yeah, and I think the ball bounces your way when you become a better football team.
Agreed.
And you make your own luck as when you're a better football team. And I admit,
bless you.
I admit, the point spread being Nebraska -7, I was one of those fans that didn't think that made a lot of sense. I thought I wasn't giving Cincinnati enough credit for how good they actually are, and probably giving us a little bit too much credit in the way that I thought we would. I thought we'd be a little bit more stout up front on the defensive line this game. I'm not saying that we got shoved around or dominated or anything like that. I just thought we'd be a little bit more disruptive, and that would lead to the score being a little bit more of not lopsided, but not lopsided is not the right word. It's a word that keeps coming to mind, but a little bit, we'd win by maybe 10 or 14 points. But the bottom line is that when we needed to make a play in this game, we did. Malcom Hartzog did go up, did come down with it. Yeah, he had 2 plays before that weren't great, but he came down with the ball when he had to and won us. And that play ultimately won us the game. There were obviously several pivotal plays in the game that led to that, but my immediate reaction was on the negative side. And after I've had a chance to really think about it, I feel pretty good about this one.
Jake, you made a great point, what you just said, that we made plays when we had to. And I think that ties into being a better football team. Like you said, it's not so much luck. Luck tends to go your way. Things go better for you when you're more prepared, more just a better overall team. But one of the things that I was most impressed with was how we answered every time we hit some adversity. We answered, Hartzog gets called for defensive holding. And then a couple plays later, if not the very next play, comes down with an interception, plays man coverage beautifully on the play with the receiver streaking into the end zone. that's not something that we've seen from Nebraska teams over the past decade. We've seen teams that are just absolute paper tigers. They fold like a cheap lawn chair as soon as adversity hits. So I think that's a testament to the culture that Rule's been building through 3 years. And I think that at the end of the day, statistical analysis wise, it's a regression to the mean. We existed basically as an outlier statistically for so many years in college football. And we finally were able to find a way to close out a game that we've historically lost. But in doing so, we played a really clean game. Like when Cincinnati gave us problems, it wasn't because we were beating ourselves. There's nothing worse than extending drives for your opponent. Instead, basically, we just had a really good team that gave us their best shot over and over again.
Haas, we were talking a little bit about this in our we'll call it our production meeting. I want you to elaborate. We know that Nebraska football, for majority of this decade, I'm sorry, not this millennium, the last 15, 20 years, has been not to the standard that was set by its predecessors, right? Mm-hmm. But I think it's notable here that you say we unequivocally lose this game, more often than not in the past 15 or 20 years. Sure. Is it the culture? Is it the talent? Is it the coaching? Is it a combination of all three that helps Nebraska win this past Thursday night?
I think it's a combination of all three. I think, by and large, you're always going to win more games than you lose if you have better players than your opponent. But I think we saw for a long time, having some pretty talented rosters, we'd still lose games in pretty inexplicable fashions. And so I think it's a testament to guys finally decided to uphold the standard that Rule was trying to build going back to late 2022 after he got hired. Mm-hmm. But I think, being in the same systems for multiple years now, and, I don't think there's a whole lot of change defensively in terms of terminology or what they're asking players to do in terms of technique, even on the defensive side of the ball under Butler and Snow. So it's still 3-3-5 at its core. There's going to be some tactical changes, not overall strategic changes with the new coordinator. But I think that having Nebraska football pour a firm foundation of who they are and how they go about their business was a testament to winning on Thursday night.
And then how, we said for a number of years that, the guys in the locker room didn't know how to win close games. That's why the statistic exists of the, most single score losses in over a 5-year period, whatever it is. Is it because we finally got a majority of those guys have moved on from the program, either graduated, transferred out, gone pro, whatever, that like the guys, I feel like the guys who are here and whether they were pre-existing players, when Matt Rule arrived, or if he brought them in, from high school or early recruiting, or if they just joined this past spring, I feel like this group of guys is quote unquote bought in.
I'd agree with that. I think, they've had, a couple of full, if not 3 recruiting cycles to really bring in the guys that they want to bring that fit not only what they're looking for from an athletic standpoint or a talent profile, but also from, who they are as people. Are they good teammates? Are they, easily coachable? Are they accountable for their actions? I think for a lot of years, Nebraska football recruited talent that was kind of flimsy. They might have been really talented on the football field, but they weren't great teammates. I don't want to reduce winning in major college football to, just be a great teammate. But when you're looking at a sport like football, and as Jake, you've always said, it's not a collision sport. It's a combat sport. It simulates warfare. That's what – I'm not trying to trivialize war, in greater society, but football was invented basically as a stand-in for combat following the Civil War. It follows all those basic tenets and principles of fighting another fighting force. You have to work together. You have to be bought in, and you can't be out there, being with a case of – Fred will get this comment from The Sopranos – can't be out there with a case of cowboy-itis trying to be a cowboy. You got to be a team player. And so I think that this team looks like they have the early stages of really playing well with Rule blending the talent together, and they're not a bunch of individual contributors. And I think that's one of the things that sets other teams apart. People can talk about, Ohio State's got this great collection of talent. That's why they won the national championship last year. Yeah, well, they also play well together, and they have a strong program in place. Mm-hmm. And that's what led to Nebraska having, a 40-year run of dominance, from 62 to 01. So I think that being able to play within the context of a team, within the greater framework of what the program expects out of you, I think if you trust the process, as Bo Pelini would say, you are going to get better over time.
I want to get into some, I don't say more granular detail, but some more specific aspects. And I want to look at some stats real quick. So in the replay, they said that Dylan had found X amount, I think at that point, 8 different receivers. Looking here, looks like it ended up being 10 different receivers were targeted, 9 had receptions. Emmett Johnson being the leading receiver, I guess. He had 7 catches, not the most yards, 27. Obviously, most yards going to go to Isaiah Hunter. He had 65 on 6 carries and a touchdown. Dane Key had 51 yards on 6 receptions and a touchdown. 2 newcomers to the program. Dylan, as a passer, went 33 of 42, 243 yards, 2 touchdowns. The longest one they had was 24 yards. And I bring that up because at one point Nebraska was facing a 3rd and 20, and it was at a critical juncture. And I got to think, I'm like, we don't have a 20-yard play that we can just go to in our playbook and know that we can hit it successfully. And we talked about this before, and Kaylee also says here, I was worried about how little we stretched the field in a very boring-looking offense until I watched the game in Skycam and saw that Cincinnati was 3 deep or cover 3 every play. We took what they gave us. Explain, I think this easiest way to explain this is kind of turning it into baseball. In the outfield, you have left field, center field, right field, and that's kind of what Cincinnati did, Jake, defensively against Nebraska, and made Nebraska, chip and chunk all the way down the field.
Yeah, there are certain schemes you can use offensively to attack a shell defense like that. That's putting a cap on what you're able to do. Different like seam routes or dig routes are probably the most traditionally used. Would be having your X or a Z on a dig. Breaking in about 15 yards, and then hopefully he can beat the corner. You can beat the safety coming down the middle, and then you can pick up a nice chunky yardage that way with a somewhat medium or longer throw down the field. To beat cover 3 like that, you really want to try to attack the middle of the field, which we did, but we did it very underneath.
Yep.
Now, I don't know what
game.
Yeah. As far as like throwing way over the top and, Dylan stretching a 40, 50 yard, probably not going to happen. At least at the college level. In the NFL, you can see it sometimes. Those guys kind of exploit it. I wish Nebraska had a speedy receiver like Trey Palmer Dylan could throw to. I think that we might have speedy receivers like that there. We just weren't able to showcase it really that well against Cincinnati. And also, we really couldn't stretch the field because we ran the ball well enough. How many carries did Emmett Johnson have?
24.
24, and he had 108 yards, right?
110.
Just about
net 108, yeah.
It's about 4.3 yards per clip.
Right. If he was averaging 5.5 yards, 6 yards a carry, maybe you can stretch the field a little bit. But Cincinnati played us too well against the run with that defensive schemes that they were running. So I don't know if Dana Holgerson and company were expecting Cincinnati to play that type of defense against us. But really, we were just taking what they were giving us. And to Dylan's credit, he did do, at least in my estimation, a really good job of being accurate, taking what the defense gave us. And the receivers played a good game as well. I would have liked to have seen I feel like they really keyed in on Ja'Cory Barney. Cincinnati pretty much took him completely out of the game. And
like the second play, the second offensive play, Nebraska, that looked like they damn near killed him.
Yep.
You know?
Yeah.
Like, how do you not throw? He was down, he was wrapped up, and then a Bearcat defender just comes flying in and cuts him in half. Like, I from my vantage point, I was surprised he got up.
He's tough. He
tough.
showed his
bigger
toughness.
than he is.
Yeah, he showed his toughness last year. He's a tough kid. There's the coaches talk about in practice how he's just a football guy, and he loves it. And Isaiah Hunter obviously looked really, really good. What I want to see more of is I want to see Dylan really. I said it last year, like half of the season. I just feel like a broken record, but can we see him really step up and throw a dig route, for instance?
Yep.
Dude, put some freaking horseradish on that thing and throw it in there. Like,
zip it up the seam.
I mean, zip it right up. And by the way, seam routes are another great concept to attack that shell defense Cincinnati was running with. Greg, do you guys remember any of those? Most everything we were doing were slants.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Slants to the sideline.
Into the sideline.
Yeah, I mean, when you were talking earlier about the best way to beat cover 3 is to throw seam routes and dig routes, I have to imagine Cincinnati in preparation of this game probably felt really good about running split 3 high coverage against us because they're probably thinking, well, yeah, the seam's a weakness against this scheme, but this guy hasn't put a single throw on tape ripping it up the seam.
Exactly. Great point.
Yeah. So and then from a run game standpoint, they're playing 3 high and everyone can say, oh, well, we should have ran the ball for 250 yards on them. That was a really good defensive front to shift a little bit from scheme to actual personnel. Corleone played a great game against us. And so when they're able to control the middle with him 2-gapping both A-gaps, then they got their DNs aligned on the inside shoulder of the tackles, they really clogged the middle, and their second-level defenders, their inside linebacker, their outside linebackers, rovers, they were able to just kind of play outside in, funneling everything back inside to where their front was doing a good job of forcing a stalemate or defeating blocks. And I would have liked to have seen some more quick screens.
I don't want to
kind of throwing out to the sideline to get those linebackers to back off a little bit.
A quick look at the stats. Dante Corleone had finished with like half a tackle. Like he assisted on one tackle, but he's a big body, and it reminded me a little bit, and I'm not necessarily trying to draw parallels or anything like that, but last year Nash Hutmacher didn't show up a ton on the stat sheet, but he did occupy offensive linemen. Mm-hmm. And that's what
you're asking a 2-gapping defensive tackle to do.
Yeah, and that's where, I think maybe Corleone had his best or was at his best. It's different and maybe 2-gap DT, but it is a different style, different type of player than like an Ndamukong Suh. And I'm not trying to like compare.
Suh was a 2-gapper as well, but he was just a freak.
He was just a unicorn who could run, who could literally just plug up every gap because he was just a generational player. But Corleone very much reminded me of like what we had with Ty last year. Not to say he wasn't unlike Hutmacher, but where he could just take up both A-gaps. Yep. I mean, now you can't really run up the middle very well, or you can't run between the tackles, I guess, as effectively. And when we did, credit to Emmett Johnson, a guy who I haven't been that high on, that made me eat crow, and I couldn't be happier about it because his physicality and he was running like he was mad at the grass.
He looked like a different tailback from last year.
I mean, man, the aggression and the violence that he was running the football with, awesome. But, and I want to get into some starred comments too here in a second because I don't want to ramble, but like, we're going to have to get some other running backs going. Oh, yeah. We can't go into Big Ten play with Emmett being the only running back we have.
Emmett can't withstand a Big Ten grinder of a schedule at 24 carries a game.
How many total touches? 31?
31.
Yeah.
Real quick before we get into the starred comments, when we were on the topic of Corleone, our offensive line in the game, I thought 4 out of 5 played a really good game. Latovsky being the outlier. And I'm not going to totally pile on Litovsky here. I was pretty critical of him on Thursday night and then Friday morning, but I think that a big reason why he struggled was the revolving door of a rotation we had at left tackle. And it goes back to like last year when Turner Corcoran went down against Illinois and Gatula had to step in. And Gatula and Evans looked like they didn't know how to pass off simple text or ET stunts. And so I think that playing next to guys he's not used to at left tackle, there were some communication errors. You know, you saw some plays where Litovsky's probably trying to cover the B gap because he doesn't know if, you know, Elijah Pritchett or Corcoran or Gatula knows what's going on that side because he's just not comfortable playing next to them. And that led to some instances of the A gap being exploited either by Corleone or a linebacker fitting in there. They ran a few stunts and loops with their DNs as well. And so I think we have to settle on a left tackle. And Elijah Pritchett, you can see the talent there. He's by far and away the best we got. But he's got to get it dialed in because that false start penalty on the 1-inch line, that probably represents a 14 to 21 point swing in how things unfold, settling for a field goal and how things unfolded after that for the next few drives.
Agreed.
And that's, you know, I hate to say that's the 3 inches between the ears, or, you know, he's an offensive lineman. That's the 5 inches between the ears, you know.
And we're a talented team, but we're not so talented that the margin for errors are wide.
Yeah.
We're still, you know, just like anyone else in football, your margin for error is so small. I think Al Pacino says it best in Any Given Sunday. 1/2 step too late, too early, you don't quite make it. Mm-hmm. So we've got to be dialed in because we're going to play some really good DNs in this conference. DTs, you know, that are also going to, you know, exploit whether it's communication errors. We saw probably 7-8 years ago now, but Cole Conrad didn't know the blocking schemes, the line calls, didn't know how to adjust them at the line of scrimmage. So we saw defensive lines shift late into a different look right before the ball was being snapped. That killed our run game that year. And so you have to have your communication, you know, totally buttoned up as an offensive lineman. You got to be able to trust what the guy next to you on either side's doing, because if one guy out of 5 doesn't do their job, the other 4 could have blocked it perfectly. That one guy just gave up a TFL.
Yeah. Real quick here, we got to give a shout out to Wrinkly Beef. Wrinkly Beef has become a YouTube member. We appreciate your support, Wrinkly Beef. And, you know, there are lots of Pitt says, glad to have you in the Cool Kids Club, Arby's. So, Cornhusker Corner's in the house. Good to see you again. Cornhusker Corner usually cycles around here during the season and takes the off season off. CC says, I rewatched the game. I feel better, especially after yesterday. Just switch Riley Van Poppel and Elijah Judy on reps, and it should help a bit. Guys, thoughts on the defensive line?
We've changed our philosophy a little bit from last year. When you have Ty and Nash, you're able to have those two guys both engage in 2 gapping. So basically what happens is those guys control 4 gaps and the ends are able to clean up on stretch plays and quarterback run plays. Without those guys, we decided to opt for a lot of stunts and gap exchanges. And on the second play of the game, you see Judy get driven back on skates for about 11 yards. And when it happened live, I about lost my shit. But rewatching it, we're running an end tackle stunt on the front side of their mid-zone play. Naweri stepping down to get into the B gap, Judy looping outside, and that's how you defeat a zone scheme. You know, running gap exchanges is great against zone-based run games. But Naweri doesn't step tight enough down. Judy has to loop even further. He has to stand straight up and run. That left guard gets into his pads and just drives him back. And then you see it on the next play. Cincinnati runs a jet power read with Sorsby in the receiver. Van Poppel swings out on the end tackle stunt, and he forces the play back in, and somebody else is able to clean it up for a loss. But I wouldn't get too down on Judy. You know, I really wouldn't. We had to gap exchange a lot because of how we had to defend their zone run game. And then we also had to defend them outside in with the threat of the quarterback run game on the edge. They like to get their receivers involved in the run game, a lot of RPOs. So in a sense, you're based as as far as spread option offenses go, Cincinnati and Scott Satterfield are about as committed to the spread option as it gets. So you really have to play assignment football. I'm not too down on the defensive front. These are things that can be fixed with reps, just like I talked to you on Friday evening about, Greg.
I know Fred said earlier we didn't get there with our stunts and twists, and dudes got walled off, and that gave Cincinnati some running lanes. So it sounds like, you and Fred are of one mind. And I don't know, should you be concerned about that, Hoss?
Fred's good, people.
I wanted to point that comment out a little bit ago, too, because a lot of that's a really good point that he's making. And that's not just D-line responsibility. Your second-level guys have to come in, too. And, Javen Wright, he's a guy that has been doing this for too long to have as many misses as he did. And he came in with his hair on fire a few times and just missed.
Yep. He missed. Hassan McCullough took horrible angles spying Sorsby.
And again, like John Bullock made a NFL roster, and he had a few like that on tape last year. He was a really good player. So you can't judge a guy on one game or one series or even one play. But, Javen Wright, I think, will be a really good player for us this year, a la Bullock last year, type of guy that's going to be solid, that can play the run, defend the run and the pass really well. But he's got to clean that up. I don't think he had his best showing in Cincinnati week 1, but I don't think that means he's not a good player. I think he's a really good player. He's really reliable.
Let's compare this defensive line to, I don't want to say a historic or inhistoric defensive line, but at least one from a decade or so back. Carl Sykes, says our D-line will get bullied around the conference just like when we came into the Big Ten 2014, 2015. Is that?
I don't see it. Because it's not a personnel issue. Those D-lines were pretty defunct in terms of talent. You had still in 14, you had pretty young Malik Collins, a pretty young Vincent Valentine. You had a Randy Gregory, who's a phenomenal player, but couldn't defend the run very well. And other than that, you had some guys who were just kind of tomato cans at D end. This year, it's not an issue of personnel. It's just an issue of how we tried to defend Cincinnati. It's a schematic issue. And one thing I'll always go back to is in all the years that Rule and Snow have been coaching together, they have never had bad run defenses. So I think it will get fixed. And I think that a lot of it, and I probably sound like I'm the biggest Cincinnati Bearcats homer in the world tonight, but a lot of it goes back to the quality of the opponent that we saw. Mm-hmm. An opponent that had a great game plan and went out there and executed with what they were given.
I want to follow that up. Where is the bigger area of concern for Nebraska defensively? Is it the mobile quarterback like Brendan Sorsby is, or was it the tempo that seemed to wear on Nebraska a little bit at times? Combination
of the factors. I mean, Sorsby, good example of this is I'm not, holding Sorsby up as some pillar of elite quarterback play. Just like nobody would have called Frost a better quarterback than Peyton Manning after we beat Tennessee in the Orange Bowl. But what they ask Sorsby to do within the context of their offense makes him a very dangerous player. Physicality-wise, 235 pounds and an explosive runner. That's a lot to deal with because anytime you can run your quarterbacks between the tackles, it changes how defenses have to defend you. Jake, it's kind of like that conversation you and I have had many times over beers when you've mentioned that I thought that Frost was a better quarterback than Crouch. I think Crouch was the better football player, but what Frost gave you was the element of running between the tackles and being able to take on linebackers, kind of like what Sorsby did. Tempo-wise, I don't know if it was so much a tempo issue. I mean, it's a little bit prevalent, but I think knowing that you can get it from your position on the field, that you can get attacked from a variety of angles in playing against the spread option, I think that guys were maybe swimming in a little bit, trying to maintain their assignments. And that probably led a lot to taking bad pursuit angles.
Sorsby reminds me a lot of Jordan Lynch, the Northern Illinois quarterback. I'm not saying he was as good before everyone crucifies me. Reference. He reminds me a lot of Jordan Lynch. And that Northern Illinois team actually, this reminds me a lot of the Cincinnati team we just played, where they did what they did and they executed very well. They knew their identity. I mean, yeah, if you look at the stat comparison, the game wasn't close. Nebraska, was far out, out statistic Cincinnati. But going back to a little bit more of a fundamental issue going back to last season, at least to me, is the games that I felt like the score should have been more lopsided than it was. We don't put up as many points as the stat card would show we should have.
Yeah.
And like I go back, Colorado last year, we only won by 18. It felt the vibes were 40 or even more. Wisconsin, we won 44-25. Is that correct?
And yardage wise, it looked like we should have put up 60.
60. We got to start finishing these drives. I think we had 75 offensive plays, over 100 yards rushing, about 250 passing, 20 points without any turnovers. I mean,
granted, only on 9 possessions, though.
I know. I'm just saying, you look at a lot of that and you're like, this doesn't make a lot of sense from the amount of points that we scored.
That's kind of been a concern of mine. I kind of explained it to Greg the other day. We're still running the system that Scott Satterfield installed in 2023, just with a different play caller. And Dana Holgerson said as much on Big Red Wrap-Up with Michael Severe the other night.
Marcus Satterfield,
thank you. Too many Satterfields in the kitchen.
Yeah.
And so when you look at it, we're still running the same concepts. We're probably still calling them the same names. Holgerson talked about having to learn our terminology, put a little bit of a spin on it. And I think that kind of goes back to, one, not wanting to disrupt 3 years of learning and 3 years of development on the offensive side of the ball. And you're looking to maintain that continuity. But I think at some point it really ties into Rule's desire to be a game control program, maintaining control of the game, grinding out drives, keeping the ball away from the other team. That's great and all. That's the philosophy. But I think that if things were to go sideways at any point in the season, not saying that they're going to, but if they did, I think that Rule is going to be rightly crucified for bringing in a guy like Dana Holgerson, who's called offenses at the highest level in college football and had some very elite offenses, and not giving him the free rein to do what he wants to do. There's times that we are still such a middle of field offense in how we go about things, and we don't attack space and leverage as well as other teams do. You see it, how Cincinnati attacked open space and leverage. We seem to like to run basically into brick walls, even when, there's space on the edges. So I think that if things were to go sideways, Rule would probably be crucified for bringing in Dana Holgerson and not having him open it up.
Not letting him be Dana Holgerson.
That he did at West Virginia.
Like Greg said, not letting him be Dana Holgerson.
Exactly.
Yep.
What are the chances? I know we've talked about this in the past with other coaches and offensive coordinators. What are the chances that they just kept it vanilla just because? Like, keep a few things a mystery, not get film on it, and then, the floodgates open on September 20th.
I don't believe in that. I think you save a few things back that are specific to exploiting something that a Michigan does defensively. But I think that you got to get game reps on what you do best. I mean, you're not going to be calling, plays that you have drawn up for, hey, we're in a situation where you got to run a double pass. You're going to have plays like that you're saving back for a rainy day. But you got to put your stuff out there on the field in a real life game situation to see where you're at. And so I think it's not so much saving plays back what caused us to appear vanilla. I think it was the way that Cincinnati chose to defend us, and we took what was there. We didn't force things. I've been pretty critical of the scheme that Satterfield installed going back to 23. So that's where I mentioned if he's having Dana Holgerson run something that's not what he does, he should be crucified if things go sideways. But I think that at the end of the day, it all comes down to how Cincinnati defended us. We played it underneath, and it goes back to Dylan needing to be better at ripping the ball up the seam. If you want to look aggressive against a defense in the way that they're defending you, you have to have players go out there and make plays. Players make the plays. Plays don't make the players.
There was a gentleman sitting around me, probably a couple rows behind, who at one point shouted, and I love it. I love it every time I hear it. I chuckle to myself, but I it doesn't stay in my brain. But he's like, let her rip, Tater Chip. And I was like, we need more of that.
Yep. Well, I can't tell you how many times Dylan dropped back and you could see somebody was breaking open. I screamed at the TV multiple times, rip it, man.
Yeah.
Rip it.
By the way,
that's one of the things. I don't mean to cut you off, Greg, but
okay.
Jake, I know you're going to agree with me on this too. Dylan is not a good in rhythm thrower. 1, 2, 3 gets to that last step of his drop, balls out.
Yeah. No, he's got to put some piss and vinegar on that thing, man. Like, let's start, these guys Barney's tough. Break a couple of his fingers. Let him tape him up. He'll be just as effective.
Hey, if you got to rip a pass up the seam in front of a single high safety or a post route, receiver might have to go up and get it and get stuck in the ribs pretty good. That's the cost of doing business in this sport.
Yeah. What's the and I understand that, we talked about, earlier in the show, football is like a combat sport. It is a physical sport, but I think you also have to, and I don't know, this is the new way of thinking, but you have to protect your receivers to an extent, right?
Can't be. That leads to too much paralysis by analysis when dropping back, going through your progressions on your drop while looking at your protection and making sure nobody's breaking free. That, you got to place the ball where it needs to be placed. That, the receiver is the one that has to adjust to it accordingly.
Yeah. Don't just leave your guy hanging out to dry with a John Lynch coming over the middle to tear his head off. But you got a guy that's open. Someone made a comment earlier about giving our receivers. You mentioned the Cortez Mills catch, putting the ball in a position where they can run after the catch.
That one killed us.
Absolutely, man. Put that ball where you want it. There's a famous clip of Steve Mariucci yelling at Giovanni Carmazzi. This is like the most vague, anyone who gets this is a true football guy, where Giovanni Carmazzi, oh my God, this is a Husker podcast. All right, real quick. He was out of the same draft as Tom Brady. He was drafted. He was, I think, the second quarterback off the board, went to the 49ers. He's from Hofstra.
Yep.
And he was, big dude, 4'6", 4'5", 40 guy, all the measurables, big arm. He now, at least last time everyone heard of him, he lives off the grid in Northern California or Southern Oregon or something as a pastoral goat farmer. Like, he doesn't have a cell phone or anything.
Must be a peaceful life.
But there's a clip where Mariucci's kind of yelling at him because he doesn't know the down and distance. He's trying to look at the clock. Goes, no, how much time do you have left? What's the down and distance? Whatever. And then he throws a ball that gets somebody like beheaded, and he's like, put it where you want it. Here to here is the difference between him scoring a touchdown or getting his head ripped off.
Yep.
And Dylan needs to put the ball where he wants it. And he did on a few throws. That throw, that RP with that Dane Key slant, that was beauty. That was a thing of beauty.
The throw to Isaiah Hunter, touchdown throw. Put it exactly where it had to be. The decision-making, though, with Dylan, like we ran in the second half, I believe it was on the first drive, we run a little fast to the flat concept, where Dylan gets the ball under center, rolls out, Emmett Johnson's on a flat route. It's basically just a long extended handoff on a stretch play. That's what conceptually what it is. And Dylan looks at him, and Emmett's wide open with probably room to run for 11 or 12 yards. Dylan looks at him and kind of cocks his arm like this, and then he runs 3 more steps and then dishes it off to him. I think Emmett dropped it. You have to rip it. That's a one-read play. You're not looking deep. It's either, is he open for the pass, or am I just going to roll out and pick up whatever yards with my feet are there? It's just a long extended handoff. And so seeing that, I'm like, the paralysis by analysis is something that has to get resolved in Dylan's game. He's got all the physical attributes in the world. He's got – could his arm be stronger? Yeah, it could. There's another throw that I want to reference here in a minute. But when it comes to reading coverage, you got to be able to, when the play is called and you're overlooking the defense pre-snap, you should already know if they stay in this shell post-snap, this is where I'm going with the football. If they flip coverage, this is where I'm going with the football. Instead, it kind of speaks to his maybe potential lapses in preparation, being that tentative on the field in his decision-making.
No. We heard the announcer said that nobody, he's generational preparation.
Maybe it might be an in the moment thing. This is going to sound real critical of Dylan, and I probably shouldn't because the Raiolas are running the whole program right now. But the method acting is Mahomes' thing, and I feel like he wants to look real cool all the time with changing his arm angle when he doesn't have to. I don't know, man. I feel like in the moment sometimes he wants to be flashy, and he starts kind of
just make the routine play.
You know who is looked really damn good tonight? The first half is all I saw, and I don't know what's going on in the game. So everyone, for all I know, he has 5 picks right now because I haven't seen anything past the first half. Carson Beck from Miami was looking pretty damn good to me in the first half of that game.
Miami's up 24-17. Notre Dame just scored a field goal.
Okay.
5.5 minutes left.
Has Carson Beck continued to look pretty good?
He's had some pretty impressive throws. Yeah. Miami's kind of been leaning on him recently with the run game.
Yeah. Marty Brown looked pretty physical. A couple plays he was in that I saw in the first half.
Yeah, shame that we went cheap on him out of the portal.
Yeah. Dante Dowdell had like a freaking 80-yard touchdown run.
That's a guy I thought of it against Cincinnati on Thursday night. That game was a tailor-made game for Dowdell. Running between the tackles, picking up tough yards. And you guys know that I wasn't the world's biggest Dowdell fan last year, but that we are going to miss Dowdell at some point this year.
Yeah, I agree.
A couple quick things here. One is from Pitt. He says, throw the bones at the like button. Yes, that is very important. Make sure that you're out there helping out what we do, helping out the algorithm. You can do that quite a bit just by liking this video on whatever platform you're watching, especially YouTube. Subscribe to the Corn Nation YouTube channel if you haven't already. Easy for me to say. And then ring that bell for notifications so that you never miss a new show, new video, whether it's something live or John's post-game instant reaction videos. Make sure that you are a subscriber and ring that bell for the notifications. And at the same time, I've been sitting on this one for 15 minutes now, and a lot of other comments have come in, but I've been letting them go because this is important. Fred says that I got to find it again, damn it. Plus 10 pit points to you, Hoss, for using tomato cans, stealing my lines. What's next? Going to call someone a jabroni.
Jake, I call people jabronis pretty often, don't I?
Because for the last 8 years I've known you, yeah.
Jamokes, jabronis.
Yeah.
Fuck sticks.
Compliment to you, gentlemen. Blaine says, Hoss and Jake, I get the feeling you've forgotten more about football than I'll ever know.
I haven't. Haas probably, not me.
Well, Haas doesn't forget stuff.
Sometimes I feel like I'm like John Nash in A Beautiful Mind.
By the way, Blaine is I'm not entirely sure which decade Blaine was born in, but I believe he's older. But he watches us live from Japan.
Hell yeah.
So we appreciate that.
Very much appreciate. And also I very much
the land of the rising sun.
Appreciate the compliment as well. That's very nice. You say.
Let's see. Living in Omaha, David Matney says, who would you say Cincinnati is comparable to in the Big Ten?
That's a great question.
And I mean, I don't know if we're talking personnel or schematics.
Yeah.
But since they played us so close, could you say Nebraska?
I think one thing you got to be thankful for is no one in the Big Ten is as committed to the spread option as Cincinnati is. You got a conference of teams that love to run the football, but not everyone's doing it like that. I would put them in overall caliber of talent and how they play and physicality, like Michigan State, Minnesota, Iowa. Right?
Yeah, Minnesota was my knee jerk. Yeah.
I think Cincinnati would put a pretty good beat down on Wisconsin.
Yeah.
And be happy we didn't play Cincinnati in 2020, what this game was rescheduled from. That team probably would have scored 50 on Frost.
Yeah. And if we probably wouldn't have won this game. I'm not just going to leave it, no need to pile on. I do think it was hilarious that Scott Frost's first game with Central Florida was in a lightning delay for like 4 hours.
That damn near got canceled.
I was like, this is just
poetic.
Poetic, yeah. It's great.
we got to playing catch up here. Fred says that's eye-opening. Haas didn't realize we weren't running the full Holgorsen. This is when you're talking about how we're still pretty much running Marcus Satterfield's offense.
If anyone's curious what the full Holgorsen run game looked like, go watch West Virginia from about 2016 to 2018. When they had like Will Greer at quarterback, Russell Shell at tailback, and Wendell Smallwood. Very good at exploiting leverage and space, good concepts of misdirection. And as a Kansas City Chiefs fan, I've had the same critique about what I'm about to say about the Chiefs run game over the past 7 or 8 years. It's so damn bland. It's just very predictable. It's duo, inside zone, wide zone, power counter. And there's not a whole lot of ball fakes involved in the backfield. And the same thing in our offense, our run game. There's got to be an increased element of misdirection to get linebackers just moving outside. That game against Wisconsin last year, I thought we were probably going to see a little bit more of the full Dana Holgorsen experience on offense. We used a lot of motions and a lot of split flow concepts to get linebackers moving away from the point of attack, just distorting their reads. We didn't see that a whole lot on Thursday night. I almost said Saturday night. And so I would just like to see us, incorporate a little bit more creativity into the run game.
We didn't consistently have a 100-yard rusher last year.
No. I don't know. I don't think anyone went for 100 in the opener against UTEP, but Dowdell went for 100 against Colorado. And I think it might have been a hot minute until someone went over 100. I think it might have been until Emmett Johnson against Wisconsin.
Yep.
Couple of interesting ones here. Specifically for you, Jake. Fred says piss, vinegar, and horseradish. Jake's passing terminology sounds like John's gravy truck.
Stick around, man. I got tons of this shit.
And then our KU fan, WJ and Spangler says, how did piss ever get associated with vinegar and horseradish?
Well, it's 3 things that are very acidic.
Yeah.
There you go. Oh, man.
Chemistry lesson.
Yep.
We're and culinary.
Oh, by the way, Jason.
Not for the piss part, hopefully.
By the way, Jason, I hope your Jayhawks just beat the ever-living fuck out of Mizzou on Saturday.
100.
Yeah, we're all in agreement there, Mr.
Yep.
Spangler. So, all right. Oh, yeah, this is fun. I mean, look, we're not here to talk about them, but Colorado lost to Georgia Tech. So that was fun.
I think Georgia Tech is a pretty damn good team, though.
Love their offense, what they do.
Speaking of, I don't want to disrupt the flow, but I think it was Jason also said that Cincinnati is a bottom 3 Big 12 team. I do not agree with that. I kind of thought that going into the game, not to give us more credit or whatever, but I just don't think so. I think that they're going to finish near the top of the Big 12 this year.
I think they'll knock off some of the heavyweights.
Yeah.
I'll be rooting for Cincinnati the rest of the way. I was impressed with them as a program, as a team. And the thing that I was most impressed with, in addition to just how hard and physical they played, they weren't chippy. They weren't chirpy. Yeah. They went about their business. They just played good football.
Yep.
Let's see. Morgan has a concern. That's our D-line against Michigan.
Worry about Michigan when we get to Michigan.
One game at a time.
I think the one thing that drives me nuts, I'm not singling out Morgan here. So, Morgan, I apologize if it comes off that way. But a lot of people get caught as a prisoner in the moment after our first game, and they think that we are going to stay static and not develop at all in the next 11 weeks, while other teams are going to sit there and go, oh, Nebraska, they sucked at defending mid-zone. We're going to run the piss out of mid-zone. Well, we're going to break stuff down heading into next week, and we're going to rep stuff in practice. And a lot of our struggles in the run game defensively, it came down to stuff that's all very stuff that's able to be repped in practice, fixed, pursuit angles, gap exchanges. Tackling probably needs to get a little bit better too, especially if you got a guy dead to rights in the backfield.
we had the question of where's Cincinnati's Big Ten comparison. Gargmel says UCLA.
Oh, I think they beat UCLA.
Right. I mean, UCLA did a good job beating themselves this week. So,
you want to talk poverty programs? UCLA.
Can we please point out Jason Boardman's comment from 9:55, the Dion saving his timeouts one? That is an all-time comment since I've been a guest host on this show. I guess now a permanent host, but that is one of the greatest comments I've ever seen.
Please feel free to read the entire comment.
How about Dion cosplaying as Bill McCartney on Friday night, wearing the old school CU coaching staff windbreaker and the old school hat? It'd be like if Rule came out wearing, one of Fred's Nebraska Adidas jackets from '97.
I'm still waiting for the red pants, man. I need the red pants. Anyway, James says, is Dion saving all his timeouts for the end of the season? Collect 30 timeouts, get 3 free toes.
And it's kind of, maybe not in the best taste, the medical issues. But then again, Dion,
he deserves all the smoke.
Yeah, I was going to say, you don't really do much to earn yourself many fans all the time with kind of your attitude. So whatever.
When with the engaging in the transitive property of who Cincinnati would be like, it reminded me of a comment I had written down. Notre Dame lost to a pretty bad Northern Illinois team last year.
Yeah.
And I think the Cincinnati team's a lot better than that Northern Illinois team. So, and I'm not saying, hey, look at Notre Dame last year. That's Nebraska this year. Go be national runner-up. But games like this are always better when you get – it's a teachable moment. It's even better when you get the win and you still get to learn from them.
Yeah.
Mr. Spangler says, be honest, Cincinnati couldn't throw. Their best offense was the quarterback running. We've had teams like that in the last 10 to 15 years. We know what a little bit is, but no. I don't think it wasn't that Cincinnati couldn't throw.
Secondary played a pretty good game.
You're right. Andrew Marshall locked down those Cincinnati receivers. Those other guys played well too, but those two guys played exceptionally well.
Donovan Jones, he's not going to be a great player. He already is a great player.
Yeah, there you go. There's another
redshirt freshman, I believe, right?
Redshirt freshman at Omaha North.
Omaha, yeah. So this comment came in early in the show. I know we've touched on it, but I don't know if there's anything more to say. Eric on Facebook says we did not play well on the defense. I think he
the lines
got a word lines, defensive or offensive lines. We've kind of talked about it, but I don't want to say that we didn't play well. It's the first game, and there's always going to be room for improvement.
I didn't think they played again defensively. We've covered the litany of what was going on. Schematic issues, missing Ty and Nash. But offensively, I didn't think we played awful on the lines outside of some miscommunication and, a procedural penalty. I thought, anytime you have a 100-yard rusher, you've done something, you've done an adequate job up front.
Well, one group that we haven't talked about yet tonight, and I don't know how, we'd be here as long as you guys want, but Gary Pierce says Eckler's squad was awesome. Game ball to them. Let's talk about special teams. We had Kyle Cunanan set a PR for a 52-yard field goal. We had it's not ambidextrous. There's another word for it. Anyway.
Ambipedal.
Thank you. Our Aussie, Archie Wilson, who, watching some of those punts, both in real time and in replay, I go back to the one, his last punt, which ended up setting Cincinnati back at their 8-yard line when it went out of bounds. He's not overexerting himself. And I know he's not down at the Nebraska 10 and he has to boom it along. He's just a nice, quick, easy drop and go. And, just really good placement. What are your guys' takeaways from the special teams unit? And, just maybe some of the improvement that you saw, limited sample size, but over last year.
Good snaps, good coverage, good kicking, field goal kicking and punts. I didn't like what I saw out of Hull booting one out of bounds. That can't happen. I mean, booting a kickoff out of bounds should be something that happens maybe once every 3 to 5 years. It shouldn't be something that happens on a fairly regular basis. I'm not a fan of our kickoff return unit. I don't think Kenneth Williams should be back there returning kicks. He did not look like he belonged on a Division I football field, FBS football field.
I'll say this, and the replay, the limited angles that we got to see on that one that went out of bounds, I understand the fact that it was so close to the sideline is jarring, but it did look like bang, bang, that it was possible that the Cincy return man had it before he stepped out of bounds. I don't know. I mean, that probably could be a coin toss.
I just rewatched it a little bit ago before the podcast tonight. He had his foot out of bounds. That's the rule.
Yep. Heads up play by him.
Yep.
You do that, that's an out of bounds kick.
I mean, you're looking at about 15, 20 yards in free field position right there.
Yeah, the kickoff and kick return units, I'm not, wild about. Been, pretty vocal about just take the ball at the 25. It's not worth it anymore. Just take the ball at the 25 and then get Dylan going. It's more detrimental to take the ball if there's a mistake. You're taking it at the 16 than you are just take it out. Unless you have a really dynamic return man, which I haven't seen one yet, unless Barney gets back there to return kicks instead of just returning punts.
Which is what I thought he would do.
That's what I thought he was going to do. But unless you have a guy like that can really be a difference maker and a game breaker, I would just do what everyone else does and take the ball at the 25.
I'm not a gambler, but Mr. Spangler has this gambling question. It says, if this Notre Dame Miami game ends in a tie in regulation and goes to overtime, does the under of 50.5 on FanDuel hold? I'll hang up and listen.
No, it overtime counts. That's why if you bet over unders, you always want it to end in regulation because overtime can screw you.
Gotcha. Very good. Let's see. James Boardman says since he had 4 procedure penalties, the fans should get a game ball for the noise.
I agree. It was loud. It was loud on TV.
It was the fumble recovery that was initially blown as an incomplete pass. It was so loud in the stadium that after they went to review, like you couldn't hear the official say that the call was changed and that it was Nebraska ball. Like there were boos. There were a lot of the boo birds were out in force. Anytime like when Cincinnati first came on the field for some of the officiating, when Travis Kelce was on the video screen, we were giving them the old what for. So that was fun. Let's see. Another star comment here. I don't know. I mean, I'll address it. We take as much or as little time as you guys want. Stephen Fromm says, can we acknowledge the fact that the Florida State defense looks awesome?
Yeah, they're physical. Tony White put together a hell of a unit down there. Alabama also might be lucky to win 6 games this year.
I saw a photo. I'm actually going to share it with best friend of the show, Josh, when he wakes up. But it's like the reason that Alabama is struggling, and it's the changes to the office that Kalen DeBoer made. I guess when Saban was there, he had like all wood, very old school, almost a regal or presidential type of feel. And then so I says, Kalen DeBoer, now it looks like the inside of a T-Mobile store or something like that.
I've seen that before. Yeah.
Alabama's not. I would say their dynasty is over, but I guess it's kind of been over for a couple of years. Let's see. James Boardman says Deshaun Singleton's been there so long it feels like Devaney recruited him.
It does.
But he was all over the field.
I thought he played a shit game at first, but then when I went back and rewatched it, he had to fit runs so differently because of the way we were gap exchanging, where that run that Elijah Judy got put on skates, you see Singleton basically get put in a wheelchair on the play. And that's tied it into his comment about wheelchairs earlier in the week. But basically he was thinking he had to fit all the way outside. That back made a hell of a move back inside and kind of put him on his ass. But other than that, what do you have, about 13 tackles?
7.
Where did I see 13?
I don't know. He led the team in tackles with
Okay.
7. Yeah, a lot of guys getting tackles, but
I'm turning this guy into Mike Singletary over here.
that's right. It's close. Singleton, Singletary. Let's see here. Another one. Gary Pierce says, looked like whenever Isaiah Mosley was in, it was a run to the outside that barely made it to the line. Seemed pretty predictable. It was, we talked about Emmett Johnson doing the lion's share of the running. And was there tipping of the hand when it wasn't Emmett in the backfield?
Well, yeah, we tried to run outside. The 2 carries that Mosey had, there was one, it was from the split back shotgun look. It was an outside zone play, and it was to the boundary, and just the receiver didn't get a good crack on the safety, and it just kind of fell apart and was strung for, I think, a 2-yard loss on a 2nd and 2. And then we motioned him out on another play, and then we motioned him back in, and we ran a jet sweep to him. And the blocking was just terrible. I think it might have been Harburg that just got knocked on his ass and just totally blew up the play. And so the blocking on the perimeter wasn't the greatest on our perimeter runs.
Let's see here. Blaine says the team deserved constructive criticism, but we got the win, and that's what matters.
100% agree.
I know, Hassan.
I think that there's always got to be constructive criticism. No matter how good or how bad, there's always things that can be done differently. It's just easier to learn those lessons in a win than a loss.
Well, I know in some of the notes that those immediate thought notes that you shared, you said never apologize for a win.
No.
Can you walk me through it and the viewers through that thought?
Oh, winning is hard.
Yeah.
You're going up against another team that they're on scholarship too. Their coaches have fat contracts as well. They're competitors. They're trying to win football games. And then on the other side of it, with about 8 minutes left in that game on Thursday night, I kept thinking of that Thursday night game 2 years ago, opening up on the road up in Minnesota. And I was actually mentally preparing myself for, Ryan, you're going to wake up tomorrow morning pissed off. This is going to be a loss. We're going to find a way to fuck around and lose this game. And being able to wake up the morning after your season opener and you're 1-0, even as just we're fans in the stands. Our input doesn't matter. We're not out there sweating and bleeding like players and coaches are. But, it feels a lot better winning a game than it does losing. Losing a season opener is one of the most depressing feelings in the world. Only second, depressing feelings as a football fan. I think I'd only be second to losing to Iowa and waking up on the Saturday after Thanksgiving, depressed. And so we won the game. And the best part is we identified areas that we have to work on. This isn't, Bill Callahan opens up the 2007 season. We beat a really good Nevada team that had Colin Kaepernick, on its roster. We beat them 52-7. I remember Marlon Lucky ran for 230-some yards. We looked great. We ended up going 5-7 that year, and the staff ends up getting fired. So it's better to find out what you are and who you are right now, rather than get to week 4 against Michigan, think that you're hot shit because you won your first 3 games, something like 38-10, and then you get punched in the mouth. I'd rather find out where we're at now. And the best part, and I've said this to some other people over the weekend, just enjoy watching this team get better week over week, because they're going to, with the caliber of athletes and the talent that we have. I think far too often we all drink too much Kool-Aid over the summer, and then we expect it to look a certain way. And then we get pissed off when something doesn't look the way that we thought it would. And so I think, just watch this team get better and hope that they peak at the right time, as we're heading into the stretch run in November, because I think this team still has the opportunity to be really good. And that started with going 1-0. So don't apologize for being 1-0.
I know we're kind of talking more macro, but Fred said this earlier. Very generally speaking, as wonderful as Dylan is, he seems to play not to lose most of the time.
Jake,
but I don't know if that's Dylan's fault.
What do you think about this one, Jake? Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like that's a kind of a I think you're onto something there for sure. I don't. The thing is Dylan seems like he's very competitive when you see him on the field. Like he competes. It's hard to like put into words. I want to see him play with more aggression. Risk taking isn't the right way to put it either. I just want to see him rip the ball around the field a little bit more and utilize the talent that he has, because I don't think he has a weak noodle arm. I think he has one of the stronger arms in the country. He just doesn't show it, and he looks a little bit timid at times, and I think it's good to take what the defense gives you. Tom Brady is the greatest quarterback of all time, and if someone wants to argue with me about that, that's fine. And he made a whole career that was 21 or 22 seasons, whatever it was, taking what the defense gave him, being a thief underneath. So I want to see Dylan a little bit more often take a risk on his second read down the field when it looks like it could be there. Your first read's covered up. Your second read is a seam route down the middle, and it's in one-on-one coverage, even if it's tight coverage. Rip the fucker in there and throw the ball and give your guy a chance to make a play. Instead, he'll immediately go, oh, no, check it down, or, oh, I better try to run. And which he does look a little bit better running the ball so far this year. He
did not slide 2 yards shy of the mark.
He did not.
Yeah, he looks a little bit better running the ball this season. But I do think on to something there with Dylan playing like he does, like he's playing not to lose more than win, but I think it's an oversimplification of what's happening, in my opinion.
Richard Arietta says plays not to get hurt.
I don't want to question a guy's toughness, because that kind of delves over into, the personal side of things. I think that he's probably been coached to not take off and run as much. I don't know. I don't really know where I fall on that question.
And he does stand in the pocket, and he does keep his eyes downfield. Like, I don't think he's afraid to get popped.
One thing I want to add, a couple things I want to add about what you said, Jake. The first one, ripping it in there to a second read, taking a chance. Interceptions are the cost of doing business. I'd rather it be an interception because you forced one into coverage, trying to, push it down the field. I don't think they should be considered like this black mark that follows a quarterback, into the afterlife, as he, just follows him around the entire time. But from a standpoint of playing not to lose, sometimes I feel like because of the way that he is, because of what, a lot of people said about generational preparation, the competitiveness, I almost think that there's a perfectionist mindset there that leads to him not wanting to make the wrong decision. And it's kind of one of those things where more is lost from indecision than wrong decision. Take a chance on occasion. Just let it rip. Go out there and let your nuts hang out.
There you go. And he never does.
No. Like
occasionally, no, don't do it every time.
Yeah. Don't need to be Brett Favre, 1996 out there.
Yeah. Or Brett Favre, 1992 to 2007, his whole career.
Or since I said nuts out, don't be Brett Favre 2008, okay?
What does he say? This ain't Detroit, man. This is the Super Bowl. Yeah, you don't have to do shit like that. But, dude, once in a while, man, rip that thing in there and take a shot and show that arm you got. And if you want to play in the NFL, I think Haas, don't want to say I'm calling out the wrong throw. You mentioned like 40 minutes ago, you want to point out a throw.
Yep.
That throw to Isaiah Hunter, where Hunter had to come back forward a little bit.
Yep.
And he caught it by the sideline, near side of the camera. I forget what direction that would be, but I think that was that was in the first half of the game.
No, it was late. It was in the fourth quarter. It was about a 9-yard throw on first and 10. It put us into a 2nd and 1.
Okay, we're talking about two different throws. The throw I'm thinking of was about a 15-yard throw where Isaiah he was step in step with the defensive back.
Are you talking about where it was a little bit of a back shoulder throw?
Yeah, kind of. But it didn't look like it was supposed to be. It looked like it should have been laid out there a little bit and letting Isaiah go up and make a play. And Isaiah still made the play because he's got his eyes on it. The defender's watching him. Defender overruns the play, and Isaiah comes back, catches it, comes down. Whatever it was, 15-yard completion, something like that. Dude, put some air under that thing. Let it go. Yeah. Let him run underneath it. Let him try to make a play.
Throw him open. That's one of my biggest critiques of Raiola, too. He doesn't throw guys open. There's not a lot of anticipation to his throws.
I agree.
The throw that I was also speaking about, he ran a kind of a fade. Hunter ran kind of a fade stop, in the fourth quarter. And at first I thought it looked like he had a weak arm, like Dylan had a weak arm, because he's rolling out to the right, far hash, back towards the sideline closest to the TV camera. And the ball just floats there. And Hunter comes down with it, puts us into a 2nd and 1. And I didn't realize it until I went back and looked at how difficult of a throw that is from the far hash in the college game. That ball probably covered every bit of about 48 yards to pick up 9, because the, field's 53 and a third wide. It's about 7 to 9 yards in from the sideline, that hash. So like that's a long throw, throwing diagonally. You're not throwing really just, in a perfectly straight line yardage wise. But there were some instances where you think he has a weak arm because he doesn't throw with great anticipation. If that makes sense.
Yes.
The decisiveness is what I'm saying, Greg.
Yes.
Right, I got you. No, yeah. The decisiveness, I understand. The anticipation, that took me a minute to wrap my brain around that.
There's a star comment from David Matney at 9:52 that I just saw. Haas, go ahead and read it to me, Greg. I don't want to refer to myself in third person.
Gotta earn my pay around here.
Yep.
Living in Omaha, David Matney says, Haas, based on what you saw in game 1, if you were an opposing offensive coordinator, how would you attack our defense?
It's a good question. I think the big thing is we fit differently defensively. So there's going to be times that we're 3 down pre-snap alignment and we're going to fit into 4 down. Post-snap, there's times that we're 4 and we're going to drop into a fire zone look and be, fit just 3 defensive linemen into the play. But I think one of the things that I would probably do is a lot of 12 personnel. 1 back, 2 tight ends, probably mix in some 13 personnel. A lot of trips formations into the boundary to force a coverage check and try to exploit the wide side of the field away from the trips. I think a lot of it would probably be forcing Nebraska's defensive linemen to defeat down blocks. Because, if we're going to be a big gap exchange team up front, if we're going to be stunning and, playing games up front, I don't want you to be able to do that run and zone. I'm not going to run zone against you. What I'm going to do is I'm probably going to switch to counter and power, run a lot of gap schemes. And so when your guy thinks that he's going to get a free loop into the B gap because, my backside guard and tackle are pulling on a counter. Well, here comes the center, doesn't care who he's picking up. He's just blocking down at the first color he sees that are coming into that gap to the weak side of the play. So I would probably really focus on just pinning DNs back inside and getting speed on the edge in the running game. Counter, wide zone, some speed option as well. And then every once in a while, hit something up the middle just as a change of pace. I think that one of the things, we play so much quarters defensively. So wheel route, running pick plays, maybe getting guys, forcing switch releases just to free somebody up and confuse defenders in their coverage zones.
Let's see. I don't want to necessarily dwell on the negative aspect of this comment, but this was the first game in 15 years, more than that, something like that, without Greg Sharp, right? Mm-hmm. So James Borman says, he said ESPN broadcast was ass. I turned on the radio to listen to Kyle Crooks, but the broadcast was behind the radio. I think Kyle will be all right, judging from my brief listen. Did you guys catch any of the Husker Network radio broadcast?
I can't tell you the last time I listened to a Husker game on the radio.
All right. Just, if you did listen to it on the radio, folks, just drop a comment, let us know what you thought of the new voice of the Nebraska Cornhuskers, Kyle Crooks. So
I do think Crooks will be good. I've seen some of his content on the Huskers YouTube channel. I just can't stand listening to all the commercials for Dorothy Lynch. Dorothy Lynch it sucks. I'll be the first to say it.
Well, was it the Omaha Supernovas, right? The volleyball, professional volleyball team up the road there. I think that, I see some of their social media videos, and they're like, all right, what is Dorothy Lynch? I'm like, I don't know. The matron of, just all the
acidic, just like piss, vinegar, and horseradish.
Anyway, it's just fun having people guess what it is. So, all right, 2 comments here that are very similar in style. We will lead off with Mr. Spangler, our KU friend, says, at what point in this show will you guys be revisiting your win-loss predictions for Nebraska? I want to make sure I am tuned in. And then, of course, Mr. Matney says, based on the team's performance in Game 1, what would you guys project our total win-loss total will be? So 2 very similar questions.
I'm
not jumping in just yet.
I figure for revisiting probably Sunday after the Iowa game.
I'm not revisiting, at least right now. Maybe halfway through the season, we could maybe touch on it, but I'm not.
Yeah.
Anything else that we didn't touch on? Anything that any thoughts you guys brought that I don't know about that you want to?
Luke Lindenmeyer is going to have a very good year.
I could see that.
Yeah.
I don't know, disappointed or dismayed or what, but didn't see Carter Nelson. I saw him on special teams, but
still getting over that hip surgery. Okay. I do want to say one thing we didn't talk about. Just like Sierra Wright was not mentioned much on the broadcast. That's a good thing for a corner. Rocco Spindler.
Yeah.
Notice him out there. That's exactly him or Evans. That's a great thing.
And they were going up against a really damn good defensive line to tackle in Corleone. So I agree.
Prohaska looked great at right tackle. Played with a real solid base. He looked a lot more athletic. Thank God, Zach Duvall's not around anymore to screw him up in the weight room.
Let's see. Richard says, can we see Harbaugh run the ball throughout the game?
I bet you'll probably see it at some point.
I did notice that, a few times that he checked in, it was on those, 2nd and 1, 3rd and 1, whatever. Like essentially it was glorified tush pushes, it seemed,
I think he was actually going to get the ball on a fullback dive or trap on the play that Pritchett false started on. Just the way that it looked as the, ball was kind of snapped, just as a formality. I think because he was directly behind Dylan in that kind of offset T formation that we were running.
Let's see. Gary Pierce says Lindenmeyer was outstanding. David on Facebook says quarterback needs to improve, not impressed.
I agree. Still room for improvement, but, as harsh as I can be on Dylan at times, 33 of 42 for what, 247 and 2 touchdowns?
243.
243?
There have been worse quarterback showings over the years.
Well,
and then Brad says this, and he doesn't qualify it. He doesn't back it up. He just says the Nebraska offense is total propaganda.
Yeah, we're going to see. We're going to see where this team develops to, where this offense develops to.
I
don't know what people expected. I don't know if they expected the 83 scoring explosion.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, Haas, we always use the phrase, you always use the phrase years back, incremental improvement. This is the time to see bigger jumps in progression. We'll find out. I mean, we've got Akron, we've got Houston Christian. That should be, I don't want to say they're easy games, but they should be.
Should be games that we score, to borrow a phrase from Jake, 110 combined points the next 2 games.
Well, let's get to that. Akron this Saturday, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's an evening kickoff again, right?
6:30 p.m.
6:30 p.m. Perfect. Do you guys want me to remind you of your predictions?
Yeah, let's go.
Yeah.
Haas, everybody's got Nebraska winning. Haas, you said 52-15. Jake said you said 49-14. Do we want to make any changes?
I'll stick with what I got. It's right at the point spread. 34.5 was what we opened at. So, yeah, it's probably about right. I don't know if Akron's going to put 14 points on us after they put 0 up against.
That's where I'm at. They crossed the 50 once against Wyoming.
I might adjust mine. I think we might win that thing about 31-0, 28. No, this isn't officially changing it.
I'm standing pat where I'm at.
Yeah, I'll stay where I'm at.
All right. Well, we'll find out Saturday night, Nebraska with their first true home game, friendly confines of Memorial Stadium, although Arrowhead treated us pretty nice. And I know it was funny that I think his post-game presser, Rule said that, Nebraska football was feeling a little bougie. Their last game before last Thursday was at Yankee Stadium, and then playing at Arrowhead. And they still get to go back to one of the great cathedrals of college football, which is Memorial Stadium in Lincoln. So it's coming up. Kickoff is, as you said, 6:30 on Saturday. So we'll be back here next Sunday night with a little less time to marinate on the game, but we'll be back here 9 o'clock for more Coronation Overreaction. Guys, appreciate your time, and thank you. Thank you, everybody in the chat, for coming out. There were, almost 600 people watching right now, most of them on X. We encourage you. Most of our interaction comes from YouTube, so whether you're X or Facebook, there's a great community on YouTube. Join us, subscribe if you want to, but just be here with us and participate. This is very much a community-driven show. So for all of you who tune in loyally each and every week, we appreciate you. I appreciate you both, Jake and Hoss. You guys are awesome, and I appreciate your time. You have little ones. I got to see both the little babies before the show, and all mine are upstairs sleeping. So hug your kids, hug your families, and God bless and go Huskers. For Hoss, for Jake, I'm Greg Mahashko. Go Big Red, Hoss.
Hey, be patient. Enjoy watching this team develop.
Jake?
Yep. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in and watching, supporting the show, and let's move to 2-0 next week. We'll see you next Sunday.
Perfection.
Go Big Red.